What's up, guys? It's your boy Aniki coming at you with another manga recommendation video. I've already recorded my Undead Unluck recommendation, and this time I'm going to recommend you Mashle, Muscles and Magic. Now, if you're the kind of person with a short attention span, understand this. If you like Quirkless Deku, think Asa shouldn't have had anti-magic, or you think Rock Lee should have been the main character, then congratulations, this series is for you. That right there should tell you what you need to know about this series right there. Furthermore, it's what if Harry Potter and One Punch Man had a baby? That's 30. That's a 30 seconds right there that might explain why you should check this out and already get me curious. But for those of you who need a little more convincing, understand that this series is actually one that I've had a lot of fun with. And usually when I read comedy-oriented series, they kind of bore me really quickly, and I just kind of end up dropping them on accident. Like the same thing happened with like Cop and Dolphin. I've read a Gravity Boys, and I ended up accidentally dropping that too. I tried to read, what was that Spirit Detective one? The Secure A Team one? I don't know. Mitama Security. Yeah, that accidentally dropped it. Just usually in Jump, when I try to read comedy series, they fail me or like just can't hold my interest. In fact, I have tried to read Hitman Reborn many times, and I couldn't do it because I just can't get through the beginning. It's just that not interesting to me. So the fact that Mashle manages to hold my attention makes it a very unique case in my eyes. So I thought I talked about why I think you guys should check it out. First of all, I find Mash to actually be a very likable MC. He's another one of those cases of like kind of a dense, obtuse character that is once again, just like Denji from Chainsaw Man, very justified in his obtuse nature. He's been raised largely away from society due to the fact that within the context of the Mashle world, magic is everything. Very similarly to stories like Black Clover, where the nobles have more mana, where there's magic that like runs everything, and if you can't use magic for everyday life, you seem kind of worthless. So much so that the first time Mash even interacts with towns or goes into a town, he notices people using magic to do so many things, and he questions why they don't just pick the stuff up with their hands. Because his father, who's raising him, wasn't somebody who used magic for everything, and his father had him work out a lot to the extent where he was like, the second page is literally Mashle bench pressing about, it looks like it could be easily a ton, and doing it at a high speed. This is something that I think, especially if you like the idea of a guy that just uses his muscles to overcome magic, then this is definitely the series for you. The first series even had like first chapter even has him like challenging mages and showing them like why his abilities are actually worth noticing. And in general, he kind of highlights why the hard work narrative in this story is important. But at the same time, and to further explain this, his goal is to become a divine visionary. The reason why he wants to become a divine visionary, a role akin, not quite akin to Hokage, but it's similar in that he seeks a high-powered position in society. But the difference here is that there are multiple divine visionaries. Just becoming a divine visionary will not be enough to guarantee that he has the sway over the people. But what it does do is that it completely would shatter the notion that you need to be a mage to be important, that you need magic, that magic is the most important thing, and that your character and your ability to make friends, your ability to make connections are all things that are very valuable. So those of you who prefer that underdog, that hard work narrative, definitely need to check this series out, because obviously My Hero Academia is not a hard work beats all talent, story where it's mostly about how life is unfair and you have to adapt to and hopefully get help from the right place, people to make it in the world. This one is a lot more high fantasy, structured around the idea that you can work out, you can break your limits and surpass the expectations of others in ways that they do not see coming. Furthermore, the magic system actually is pretty decent. There's levels to different tiers and spells. There's visible markings that can kind of indicate the level of a mage should be expected to be at, with the one-line, double-line mages, where one lines are usually the commoners, whereas a two-line mage is considered considerably more rare and automatically has a higher mana deposit. And so you have that whole stratification within where people inherently can just look in the mirror and be like, I'm better than these people because I have two lines on my face. That alone makes me superior. And when I talk about there's a variety of magic, I mean, there's a guy who has acceleration magic, or I should say velocity magic, because he can determine how fast you are, or he can slow you down, speed himself up, move around on arrows, these kinds of things. There's somebody who has marionette magic, which focuses around turning people into puppets or using different puppets in general to combat people. There's gravity magic that's been involved, water magic, transformation magic, love magic, wind magic, explosion magic. There's already been a variety of spells and types of magic shown within the series, and we're not even 40 chapters in. So I think that in of itself goes to show the length of creativity that the author is willing to put into the series to flesh out the world and give you interesting fights, but also give you a series that's actually just genuinely down to earth and kind of funny. The way the characters play off each other and understand and interpret Mash's aloofness, it kind of lends itself to you can tell he's under socialized, but the people who work and interact with him realize that he genuinely is just like a nice person who, the way he looks at it is, he's just here to like become a divine visionary. He's not here to hurt people or make things worse. He's there to just improve society for people who are a bit more downtrodden. In fact, to the extent where he doesn't ever so far pick up major prejudices towards people, even those who have the uppity looking down on lower class ways. In fact, usually what he does is listen to what their motives are and decides whether or not there's scum from there. A lot of times when you interact with Mash or people go to interact with him, they decide that he's, lesser than. And as he, advances and showcases his superiority, instead of being a jerk about it, he listens to their motives, hears about some of them being ostracized because their parents tried to kill them. Maybe someone's been ostracized because they just were, one character's views stem from the fact that as a noble, his mother reached out and believed in equality and was betrayed by the commoners, and the fact that they said, you guys live no matter what, no matter what, and they killed her. So in his mind, the commoners are riffraff. And so in Mash's mind, you're doing this because of the memory of your mother. You're not entirely a bad person. You just happen to have the wrong approach to life. These are things that Mash kind of gets to see, and that's an interesting case of slightly airheaded, but very perceptive and willing to look at people and see past what they are doing and see what their intents are. Now, impact versus intent is an important thing to always discuss, because at the end of the day, if you do a bunch of terrible things, hurt a bunch of people, cause chaos and permanent damage, then your intent kind of doesn't matter. But specifically in this context, this is Mash in a high school setting where these teenagers are in their formative years and they have time to grow, develop, and learn and become better people before they take that hate into the world as adults, before they become divine visionaries or important members of the Magic Bureau, so that they can influence the world and perpetuate those ideologies. Instead, being challenged by Mash, a man who has no magic, they are forced to come to a reckoning that magic isn't everything and who you are matters. It's a great way to tackle something where 100% of the population effectively is supposed to have mana, and it especially is going to be important because you can tell that there's been experimentations on taking mana from people, depleting their magic supply for your own personal gain. So as you have these kinds of interactions going on, it's important that Mash influences different people of different dorms, because these ideologies need to be questioned, not only on a macro level as a person coming into divine visionary role, but you also need people on a social, personal level to question whether or not the ideologies they carry within themselves are worth perpetuating for real, and whether it's just taught to them by people who are hateful bigots. Mash's one of the main strengths, as I mentioned though, is Mash's comedy. Mashel's genuinely a series where the characters will notice things about each other and be like, nah man, that's weird. Like Mash will straight up say he sees a locket and opens it up and sees a girl and he's just like, are you a pedo? Like he straight up just instantly is like, no dude, that's sus. Why do you have a picture of a little girl that you just carry around? That's creepy. And yes, the story explains why, and it's not creepy, but the fact that he 100% will instantly call it out, like, no, that's strange, is something that I really do kind of find kind of fresh within the context of Mashle. It's a series that will 100% just call random tropes out and then say all right, what are we going to do with this trope? And then takes it and goes, okay, it's not as bad as you thought or perceived it to be. It's a lot better than it's supposed usually utilized as. So between really good fights and very beautiful art, Mashle is a series that you can tell was started in the digital art medium more than likely, and because of that, you have wonderful ways that motion is captioned. There's times where Mash throws objects or throws entire beings at people or past them, and they move. You literally would think you were looking at a photograph where the object itself is blurred, flying past. You can capture the speed of it, but the person is standing still, and you kind of get the ultimate visual that lets you know, wow, this is actually like a great mocap. It literally looks like somebody used a mocap lens and just went ahead and put that on a page as a manga. So if you enjoyed actually good comedy, even with recurring gags being primarily food-based, with Mashle's obsession with cream puffs, and you like action and you kind of want to see a story where a person who's not superpowered necessarily, but just happens to be super powerful, takes the reins and charges forward as the main character, then Mashle, Muscles and Magic is the series for you. If you're a member or a viewer who's been watching the Church of MHA streams for a long time, you've probably heard us mention Undead Unluck, you've heard us mention Mashle, you've heard us talk about Phantom Seer because we tend to talk about everything in Jump every now and then throughout the podcast. Then you should know that this Sunday, we'll be doing a Sunday OVA. There's no MHA this week, so obviously we don't have a chapter to live react to, or I don't have a chapter to live react to and then bring the boys and Sayas on to discuss, but we do still want to give you content, so we're going to go ahead and do a Undead Unluck Master stream this Sunday, so you can go ahead, if you want to, get caught up, join us then, watch the stream, have a discussion, get our different opinions on it. Obviously, I tried my best to keep this one very spoiler light so that you didn't have all the points ruined for you, so that you can experience these jokes and fights for yourself and get to see how you genuinely feel about the story without somebody just telling you this thing happened in Mashle and it's really good because X, Y, and Z. Instead, I want you to read Mashle. You decide if it's good or bad because of X, Y, and Z. And then we confer on Sunday and we can all talk about it and see how we feel with you in the chat and me, the boys, and Sayas, or whoever, all on call. So if that interests you, go ahead, check out Mashle, give it a read. See you Sunday for the OVA. Aniki out.